Hate. It's a heavy word, but for Kyrie Irving, it means something different. It's not always about anger. Sometimes it's about betrayal, pride, or the battles that left scars on and off the court. Few players in modern basketball have sparked as much emotion as Kyrie. He's one of the most skilled ball handlers the game has ever seen. A creative genius with a mind as unpredictable as his crossover. But with that brilliance came friction. Teammates turned rivals, respect turned resentment. And a few names stayed etched in his memory for all the wrong reasons. Kyrie never backed down from conflict. Whether it was calling out the media, defying narratives, or clashing with stars, he carried his truth like a weapon. Sometimes that truth cost him relationships, championships, and reputation, but it also revealed exactly who he was. This is the story of the players Kyrie Irving couldn't stand, the ones who crossed his lines, challenged his ego, or reminded him that even for a man who lives in his own world, hate has a way of finding you. These are the 6 players Kyrie Irving hated the most. But before proceeding, please take a second and subscribe, and like this video, it will be very motivation for us. LeBron James. Few partnerships ever burned brighter, fractured more painfully than Kyrie Irving and LeBron James. Their story wasn't about simple hate. It was about pride, trust, and what happens when 2 basketball geniuses see the game and their place in it differently. When LeBron returned to the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2014, Kyrie was 22 years old, already a star, already carrying the weight of a franchise. Cleveland had drafted him to lead the next era, and he'd embraced it. Then LeBron came home. Overnight, the team's identity shifted. What had been Kyrie's team became LeBron's mission. At first, it was electric. LeBron was the strategist and leader, Kyrie, the artist and assassin. They complemented each other perfectly. Control and chaos, wisdom and flair. The result was magical. 3 straight NBA Finals appearances and the 2016 championship, the one that broke Cleveland's 52-year title drought. That championship run was everything basketball could be. Passion, redemption, legacy. Down 3-1 to the Golden State Warriors, they clawed back behind LeBron's leadership and Kyrie's brilliance. The defining moment? That cold-blooded step-back 3 over Stephen Curry in Game 7. The shot, the roar, the image of LeBron and Kyrie embracing after the buzzer. It was more than victory. It was brotherhood. But the truth is, even at that peak, tension was building. Kyrie loved the game, but he also loved independence. He wanted to lead, to carve out his own legacy. Yet no matter what he achieved, the headlines always framed it as LeBron's team, LeBron's triumph, LeBron's leadership. For Kyrie, it felt like he was playing in someone else's movie, co-star in a story he'd helped write. Behind the scenes, those feelings grew heavier. Kyrie bristled at LeBron's leadership style, the constant media presence, the subtle control, the expectation that everyone fall in line. LeBron, used to mentoring young teammates, sometimes treated Kyrie like a project. But Kyrie didn't want a mentor. He wanted mutual respect. By the 2016-17 season, things were tense. Reports surfaced that LeBron had tried to recruit Paul George or Jimmy Butler, and Kyrie hadn't been told. For a player who already felt sidelined, that was the final push. That summer, he stunned the league by asking for a trade. He didn't want out of Cleveland. He wanted out of LeBron's orbit. Publicly, LeBron said the right things. I just want the kid to be happy. But privately, the move hurt. He had believed their bond was real, their goals aligned. Kyrie, though, saw it differently. He told the media later, I needed to find out who I was as a player. I didn't want to stay in someone's shadow. To fans, it looked like ego. To Kyrie, it was liberation. Once he left, the dynamic shifted from respect to rivalry. Every meeting between them felt charged, a mix of nostalgia and tension. When Kyrie joined the Boston Celtics, he wanted to prove he could lead a team without LeBron's guidance. When he eventually joined Brooklyn Nets, he made comments that reignited the fire. In 2019, he told reporters, finally, I can look down the bench and see someone who can make that shot too, referring to Kevin Durant, a direct shot at LeBron. The quote went viral. LeBron stayed silent, but the subtext was clear. Whatever love had once existed had turned into something colder, but the truth beneath it all was complicated. Kyrie never hated LeBron in the way fans assumed. It wasn't animosity. It was friction between 2 men who both wanted to lead. They were wired differently. LeBron, the unifying strategist, who built trust through direction. Kyrie, the free spirit, who built trust through individuality. Their breakup left scars on both. LeBron admitted years later that he wished he'd handled Kyrie differently, that he'd communicated more, and when Kyrie returned to Cleveland as an opponent, the crowd's boos mixed with cheers. Even the fans couldn't decide what to feel. Time, though, softened the edges. In 2023, when they reunited at the All-Star Game, they shared laughs, small gestures, and a few quiet moments of peace. It wasn't the brotherhood of 2016, but it was something. Two veterans who had lived long enough to understand that some conflicts never needed to be won. Kyrie once said, "People don't understand how much I learned from LeBron, but I had to learn how to be myself too." That's as honest as it gets. For all the noise, that was the truth at the heart of their split. Not hate, not betrayal, just the painful process of growth. Looking back, their story feels almost Shakespearean. King and the prodigy, bound by greatness, but divided by pride. Together, they made history. Apart, they found identity. For Kyrie Irving, LeBron James wasn't an enemy. He was both mentor and mirror, the man who helped him reach the top and the one he had to walk away from to stay there. And sometimes, that kind of love, competitive, complicated, unforgettable, is the kind that hurts the most. Stephen Curry. If LeBron James was the brother Kyrie Irving clashed with, Stephen Curry was the rival who defined his pride. Their relationship has always been strange, respect wrapped in resentment. They admired each other's talent, but their success stories pulled in opposite directions. Curry was the face of structure and teamwork. Kyrie was the embodiment of isolation and artistry. When Curry's Golden State Warriors rose to dominance in 2015, the league shifted overnight. The ball movement, spacing, and joyful rhythm of Golden State made basketball look easy. Kyrie, watching from Cleveland, didn't see joy. He saw a challenge to everything he believed about how greatness should look. For Kyrie, basketball was poetry and chaos, dribbling through crowds, manipulating defenders, and finishing impossible layups. Curry's game was mathematical, built on systems, spacing, and rhythm. It wasn't that Kyrie hated Curry the man, he hated what Curry represented. The idea that you didn't have to play like him to be great. Their rivalry exploded in the NBA Finals. From 2015 to 2017, they faced off 3 straight times, and the contrasts couldn't have been sharper. Curry smiling, splashing threes from the logo. Kyrie expressionless, carving defenses apart with precision footwork. One thrived on freedom within structure. The other thrived on chaos within control. In 2016, that contrast reached its peak. Curry won his second MVP, unanimously, but Kyrie got the last laugh. Game 7, 53 seconds left, tied at 89. Curry switched onto Kyrie at the top of the key. One dribble, a crossover, a step back, the shot, swish. That single moment flipped the narrative. For one heartbeat in time, Kyrie beat the system. Even after that championship, though, the rivalry never faded. Fans constantly compared the two, arguing over who had the best handle, the purest shot, the most skill. Kyrie's pride never let him ignore it. He once said, "People forget how skilled I am." And when analysts elevated Curry as the greatest shooter ever and the most revolutionary guard of his era, it quietly irritated him. What made it worse was Curry's image. Loved by fans, adored by media, the perfect teammate, everything Kyrie wasn't portrayed as. While Curry was celebrated for joy, Kyrie was dissected for attitude. The double standard fueled his frustration. Over time, the animosity mellowed into mutual respect. When asked about Curry in 2021, Kyrie admitted he changed the game. What he's done, you have to respect it. But he also couldn't help adding, "I still like my chances one-on-one." That's Kyrie in a sentence, acknowledging greatness while never conceding it. In truth, Kyrie didn't hate Curry as a person. He hated what Curry's success symbolized. The idea that discipline could outshine creativity, that efficiency could overshadow art. Their rivalry wasn't personal, it was philosophical. And in that battle between structure and soul, Kyrie always chose the latter. Kendrick Perkins. Some rivalries start with hard fouls or playoff losses. Kyrie Irving's tension with Kendrick Perkins began years after the buzzer stopped sounding, when both men traded jerseys for microphones. Back in 2015, Perkins joined the Cleveland Cavaliers as a veteran presence. He'd seen everything: finals runs, locker room egos, young stars still figuring themselves out. Kyrie was already an all-star, dazzling and unpredictable. Perkins admired the talent, but saw a kid who didn't like being told what to do. Their relationship stayed professional, but never close. Years later, when Perkins became an ESPN analyst, that quiet distance turned public. He began criticizing Kyrie on air, not his skill, but his leadership. "He's a disruptor, not a leader," Perkins said during one segment, and that phrase followed Kyrie for months. It was a label he never accepted. For Kyrie, those words felt personal. He'd spent years trying to rebuild his image, first as LeBron's teammate, then as Boston's misunderstood star, then as Brooklyn's creative thinker. To be called a disruptor by a former teammate cut deep. He didn't respond directly, but his friends made sure Perkins knew how he felt. The feud hit its peak in 2020. As the NBA prepared to resume play in the Orlando bubble, Kyrie questioned whether returning was the right move during nationwide protests for racial justice. Perkins fired back on television, accusing him of derailing progress. Kyrie saw it differently, not as rebellion, but as conscience. To him, Perkins wasn't just disagreeing, he was dismissing what mattered most. From there, their clash became symbolic. Two generations of players arguing about what leadership means. Perkins came from the old school: do your job, follow the hierarchy, protect the team. Kyrie believed in independence, in questioning systems, in finding truth beyond the court. Neither was wrong, but neither could convince the other. Even now, the tension lingers in interviews and subtle jabs. Perkins often says he respects Kyrie's game before dissecting his choices. Kyrie, meanwhile, has learned to respond in silence, the kind that speaks louder than words. Their story isn't about enemies, it's about ideology. Perkins represents the structure Kyrie resists. Kyrie represents the freedom Perkins can't fully trust. Two men who once wore the same uniform, now standing on opposite sides of what it means to lead. And that, in a way, is what makes their feud endure. Not hatred, but conviction colliding in public view. Dame Lillard, Portland, 2019. Two of the smoothest guards in basketball met again, and you could feel the tension without a word being spoken. Kyrie Irving and Dame Lillard never had a full-blown feud. Not one born of cheap shots or playoff grudges. But beneath the surface, there was something more subtle: pride. Both guards lived in the same competitive space. Both carried chips on their shoulders. Both believed they were the most skilled point guard in the league, and both felt underappreciated in their own ways. Kyrie was the artist, unpredictable, improvisational, impossible to read. Lillard was the grinder, loyal, methodical, and unflinchingly confident. When their worlds collided, it wasn't hatred that sparked. It was tension between two players who demanded the same respect, but walked different paths to earn it. The roots of their friction go back to comparisons. Around 2018, debates flooded sports shows and social media. Who's better, Kyrie or Dame? Some analysts praised Lillard's leadership, his durability, his loyalty to Portland Trailblazers. Others pointed to Kyrie's handle, his finals heroics, his ring. Kyrie bristled at the idea that leadership defined greatness. To him, skill did. For Lillard, leadership wasn't optional. It was the whole point. The tension sharpened when Kyrie joined Kevin Durant in Brooklyn. Reporters asked Lillard if he'd ever considered teaming up with another star to chase a title. He smiled and said, "I don't run from the grind." To most, it was just a statement of identity. To Kyrie, it sounded like a shot. They weren't opposites in talent. They were opposites in philosophy. Kyrie sought freedom, expression, and individuality. Lillard sought loyalty, endurance, and team identity. To Dame, Kyrie's exits from Cleveland and Boston looked like abandonment. To Kyrie, Dame's loyalty looked like self-limitation. On the court, they respected each other deeply. Every matchup was personal, full of mutual highlights. Step-backs answered by step-backs. Crossovers mirrored by crossovers. But under the smiles and handshakes, you could feel the quiet competition for recognition. After one 2019 game, Lillard told reporters, "Kyrie's got one of the best handles ever, but I feel like I can go toe-to-toe with anybody." Kyrie, in turn, posted a cryptic Instagram caption days later about truth being bigger than narratives. Fans didn't need translation. They knew exactly who he was referring to. Over time, the heat cooled into distant respect. When Kyrie was suspended in 2022, Lillard publicly defended his right to redemption. And when Lillard went on his deep playoff runs, Kyrie gave props online without hesitation. But that underlying tension, that drive to be recognized as the point guard of their generation, never really disappeared. Kyrie Irving and Dame Lillard never needed to hate each other to be rivals. Their friction came from what they shared: pride, principle, and an unrelenting belief that they were both writing history the right way. Dennis Schroeder. The tension between Kyrie Irving and Dennis Schroeder didn't come from history or headlines. It erupted in a single night. April 10th, 2021. Brooklyn Nets versus Los Angeles Lakers. Two quick guards jawing back and forth until the trash talk turned sharp. Midway through the third quarter, Schroeder picked up a foul. He said something under his breath. The kind of comment you hear in every game. Kyrie fired back. Words escalated. Tempers flared. And before anyone realized it, both were ejected. It wasn't about the play itself. It was about tone, pride, and that unspoken code between competitors who refused to be talked down to. After the game, Kyrie took to Twitter, but not to rehash the argument. He criticized Schroeder for using the N-word during their exchange, writing, "We're not doing that no more." It was a moment that revealed more than frustration. It showed Kyrie's growing focus on principles and language, on the meaning of respect beyond basketball. Schroeder didn't respond publicly, but the story dominated headlines for days. For Kyrie, that incident wasn't just another on-court flare-up. It was about setting boundaries. He'd reached a point in his career where he wanted to control how the game and his identity within it were defined. For Schroeder, it was about misunderstanding. He'd treated Kyrie like any other opponent, not realizing the conversation had shifted from basketball to something deeper. The two never reconciled publicly. Every time they crossed paths afterward, the tension was visible, not hostility, but distance. For fans, it became a symbol of Kyrie's evolving complexity. A player once known purely for dazzling skill, now standing firm on cultural and personal lines he refused to cross. But under the headlines, there's another layer. Both players came from similar backgrounds. Undersized guards who built their reputations on confidence and fearlessness. Schroeder, born in Germany, carved his place in the league through grit and quickness. Kyrie, raised in New Jersey, rose on artistry and imagination. Their confrontation wasn't about status, it was about identity. Schroeder later mentioned in an interview that he still respected Kyrie's talent. "He's one of the best to ever do it," he said, "but sometimes emotions get in the way." It was a rare, measured response, but Kyrie never acknowledged it. He'd already moved on, focused on his next cause, his next principle. Their feud stands out because it wasn't about rivalry or ego. It was about values, about where lines are drawn and how easily they can be crossed. For Kyrie Irving, that night against Dennis Schroeder wasn't just another ejection. It was a statement that some battles go beyond the scoreboard. Dillon Brooks. When Dillon Brooks showed up in a Kyrie Irving game, it was almost guaranteed something would happen. Brooks built his reputation as a professional irritant, the player who talks, bumps, and challenges every star he faces. For someone like Kyrie, who sees basketball as art, that kind of energy felt like noise interrupting music. Friction first surfaced during the 2022-23 season, when Brooks' Memphis Grizzlies faced Kyrie's Dallas Mavericks. Brooks did what he always does, chirped constantly, pressed up on defense, clapped in Kyrie's face after misses. Kyrie, calm but visibly irritated, gave a look that said everything. To him, Brooks wasn't competition. He was distraction. After the game, their brief handshake went viral for what didn't happen. Brooks extended his hand. Kyrie barely acknowledged it, walking past without eye contact. When reporters asked, Kyrie explained it simply. "He plays hard, but it's not my type of game." It was polite, but pointed, a veteran's dismissal of antics that didn't meet his standard. For Kyrie, Brooks represented something he's always resisted: performative toughness. Kyrie's battles are internal, mental, spiritual, strategic. Brooks's approach is loud, confrontational, and rooted in disruption. They occupy opposite ends of basketball's emotional spectrum. Brooks later fired back with his usual bravado, saying, "I don't care who you are, I'm going to guard you full court." It wasn't personal to him, it was his brand. But to Kyrie, every word, every stare carries intention. Once told teammates, "I play chess, not checkers," and in that quote lies the essence of their divide. Brooks thrives on chaos, Kyrie on control. Their encounters since have followed the same script. Brooks pushes, Kyrie disengages. Brooks celebrates defensive stops, Kyrie answers with silence and shot-making. Yet that silence cuts deeper. To someone like Brooks, being ignored is worse than being beaten. Kyrie's dislike isn't fueled by anger. It's philosophical. He doesn't hate Dillon Brooks. He hates what Brooks represents: the noise, the theatrics, the constant need to prove toughness in a game Kyrie believes should be about mastery. After one 2023 matchup, when asked if he respected Brooks's defense, Kyrie paused, smiled faintly, and said, "He's a good defender. He'll learn short, sharp, and dismissive." Classic Kyrie. In the end, their story isn't about a fight or a feud. It's about contrast. Dillon Brooks thrives on friction. Kyrie Irving lives for flow. One plays to disrupt rhythm, the other creates it. And sometimes, that difference alone is enough to make two players feel like they're speaking different languages.